containers of it, 80 times the size. This is becoming such a problem that people start out with those little canisters and they get so into it, they end up with the great big ones. Over the summer, doctors here in Herefordshire and Worcestershire have sounded the alarm after treating more and more young people who are presenting to them with the life-changing effects of inhaling this gas. And something needs to be done about it. We can exclusively reveal this morning that one of our Worcestershire MPs plans to raise the issue in Parliament. Before we hear more on that, our reporter Isabel Kimbrey has been to meet the owners of a pub in Bromsgrove to find out how laughing gas is impacting their business.
Nitrous oxide, laughing gas, NOS, whatever you want to call it. It's been in the news quite a lot recently.
Laughing gas is one of the most widely used recreational drugs among young people here in the UK. Now canisters up to 80 times the regular size are being sold.
A top neurologist from Worcestershire says the recreational use of nitrous oxide is a public health emergency.
That doctor is David Nicol. He says he's now treating more young people than ever with severe nitrous oxide poisoning, which is changing their lives forever.
Really, since the pandemic and with lockdown and everything, this is something that's gone absolutely through the roof. I can think of a young man I saw 18 months ago, otherwise fit and well, working as an estate agent, who is now reliant on, have to walk with sticks and unlikely will have to for the rest of his life.
But it's not just having an impact on people's health.
At least two of the tables have normally got sick underneath, and then there's just balloons left on the floor.
Amongst all of that are these canisters, these nitrous oxide
These
canisters.
because it's gone to the big canisters, these are usually just left on the table.
This is the scene the owners of one Bromsgrove pub turn up to after a Friday or Saturday night. Since May, they've seen more and more young people using and selling nitrous oxide on their benches just outside the front door of their pub. They've told me it's making them extremely concerned about the safety of their business and customers. In fact, they want to remain anonymous because they worry about the backlash they might get for speaking out.
Well, we see people walking down the street from different venues, and they've got balloons in their hands.
And can you see people coming along and basically someone is out there with one of these big canisters, fills up balloons and transaction of money?
That usually happens later when we're gone.
It just makes us want to take up our benches so they've got nowhere to sit and do it, but we need the benches there for the customer because times are hard.
Well, up until recently, the people selling laughing gas to partygoers have done it at night. But now that's changed.
4 o'clock in the afternoon at shop across the road, some youngsters got a canister out of their rucksack and they showed the people in the shop how they blew the balloons up and how they took it, and they were just laughing as if like it was okay to do. We've had people going down the alleyway with the canisters, the girls have fetched out their bags and the lads have walked off up the street, 3 or 4 of them.
The owners say the area is a hot spot for antisocial behaviour. However, they haven't had much luck after reporting it to the police.
We have reported to the police.
And what's the response been?
Not a lot, hardly any.
They're short-staffed, the police are, so they can't really get people out to come and sort of nip it in the bud or even, patrols. There just isn't enough police.
So when will the nightmare end? Well, the government is currently waiting for advice from the Independent Advisory Council on the Misuse of Drugs on how to tackle the issue. Until then, the question remains unanswered.
So our reporter Isabel Kimbrey out in Bromsgrove. We've asked the police, West Mercia Police, to talk to us about this, and also the antisocial behaviour the pub owners are having. The police have declined, unfortunately. They said they'd send us a statement, but we haven't had that either, which isn't great. But more and more people are using this, and action does need to be taken. So here's the interesting bit, really interesting bit of this. It's going to go all the way to Parliament. It looks like it anyway. One of our MPs, Mark Garnier, MP for the Wyre Forest, has told us he shares our concerns and he's going to raise this issue in the House of Commons.
Look, I'm very happy to raise this. I've worked with BBC Hereford Worcester in the past over other issues, and I'm very happy to help promote this cause in Parliament. I think one of the ways we can start off is by having a Westminster Hall debate or an adjournment debate on this in order to raise the issue with ministers and to get it in sort of the wider public domain. But I completely agree. I mean, it's very, very interesting that the profession, be it compressed gases or the catering profession, are keen to deal with this and resolve this. I think it just goes to show that they care very much about this. You guys at BBC Hereford Worcester have done a great job raising awareness of this. I'm very, very happy to get behind you guys and see how I can help.
Now, the government currently waiting for the findings of a review into it since last September, but since then there are calls from, as Mark Garnier was saying, from the actual gas industry, compressed gas industry, and doctors for the government to hurry up and get on with it and do something. Dr. David Nicholl is a consultant neurologist from Worcestershire. You heard a clip from him in that report from Isabel. He was one of the first people to sort of bring this to the public domain and mention what a problem it was, and he joins us again now. David, good morning.
Good morning, Elian. I really thank you for the invite.
No, really good to speak to you. Thank you for raising this. And also, what do you think of Mark Garnier going to talk to ministers about this in the House of Commons?
I think this is incredibly useful because, as you said, there's been the Home Office is putting an inquiry into this, or at least since last September, and they really need to crack on with this because my worry is that this is potentially going to get worse. And indeed, over the last 6 months, I think some of the reason it's got worse is some of these websites which are driving sales.
Yeah, because we should say it's perfectly legal to buy this, isn't it? For its intended purpose, which is a catering purpose, that's fine. But people are getting hold of it very easily because it is so readily available online.
It is, and I hadn't realised just how difficult a story it is to talk. And actually, you alluded to this in Isabel's report, even pub owners reluctant to talk. And I think, one, they don't want to annoy their customers, but actually the patients I see are really, really reluctant to talk about it. And I think language is important. And the one thing we don't want to do is demonise people, basically. But I think action does need to be taken against the suppliers. And this has happened in Cardiff. A supplier got jailed because he had 25,000 cylinders of this stuff.
Yes.
Under the psychoactive substances.
Yes, I suppose it's the intention, isn't it? I suppose if you are a caterer and you've got a couple of cans of this, that's fair enough because it's probably all you need. But if you've got like 500 of them, then you're clearly going to be doing something else with it, aren't you? How much of this do you see when you're treating people? What kind of issues does it cause, and how much of it is coming in front of you, David?
Well, to put this in context, I've been a consultant 20 years. I'd maybe see a case like this once every 10 years or so. Then at the beginning of the pandemic, I was seeing a case once every couple of months. I'm currently off work at the moment, but I was seeing 2 or 3 cases a week up until September. So it really has got worse during the pandemic, and it has got worse this year. That's not just me saying that. Other neurologists across the country are finding similar issues.
And it's asphyxiation, isn't it? Is I suppose one of the worst things because it's you're breathing in this stuff rather than oxygen. But does it damage your nerves as well? Is that one of the things it can?
No, it's more than that actually, because it's basically it impedes the metabolism of vitamin B12, and vitamin B12 is really important for normal nerve function, both within the nerves in your hands and feet, but also within the spine. So particularly chronic users, and I'm seeing people using hundreds of the little cylinders, or maybe 2 or 3 of the big cylinders in a weekend. Basically, people haven't got a clue about dose. And yes, nitrous oxide is used by anaesthetists. But interesting, I spoke to anaesthetists last month, and they're actually trying to use a lot less of it because it's a greenhouse gas, which is 300 times more toxic than carbon dioxide. So a question, I don't know if anyone in the catering industry could answer this, is are there not alternatives to whipping cream than nitrous oxide? My mum used to use a whisk. So,
Yeah, it's a very good point, isn't it? Yeah, that is a very, very fair point. Much more environmentally friendly, and you wouldn't have the problems of inhaling a whisk. Good. I have to move on. Sorry, very quickly. Yeah, go on. What were you going to say?
Well, also because in fact, I think this is going to get worse because if you look on Google Trends, which is a way of searching the search terms people are using, the 2 main brands of this have gone through the roof in the last 2 years, basically. So these people aren't home bakers. So I think the question needs to be asked: who's using this?
Yeah, really good point. Good to speak to you. As always, thank you very much, Dr. David Nicholl, Worcestershire neurologist. So it causes real damage, long-term damage. It's not just an innocent little bit of kids having fun that like they do and experimenting with stuff. There's the real implications to this, and it's called.